Okay, I think we've got everybody that's now joined us. So we'll now get underway. So welcome, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining this webinar. This webinar is about unlocking the power of marketing automation. It's a 45-minute webinar. I will leave room at the end should anybody wish to ask any questions. But just to give you some idea, what we're going to do is talk about unlocking business growth through marketing automation and success tactics. There's kind of three sections to today's webinar. The first part is going to be talking about marketing automation, setting the scene, what it is. The second part is going to be around how to make marketing automation work for your business, what the processes you need to go through, and how to implement it successfully. And then there's a small section at the end where we just talk about the future of marketing automation and where it will be going in the next 5 years. And then we'll just have a little wrap up at the end. What I'd like to hope that you take away from today is what actually marketing automation is, which business will get most benefit, so who is it really applicable for, how marketing automation helps, and in particular, how it can improve sales and marketing alignment, help you understand how it can deliver you more leads, help you understand how it can deliver a better customer experience, and how ultimately it can drive improvements in conversion and sales margins. You'll also learn what you need to do to make it work for you and your business. And more importantly is how also you can set it up in a way that you can use existing resources and without necessarily increasing your marketing or sales spend. So the first part we're going to talk about is marketing automation. Google's definition talks about marketing automation, and it's about using technology to automate repetitive marketing tasks like email, social media posts, customer journeys, and lead tracking. It helps streamline your operations, personalize your communications, and ultimately drive sales, which is basically what this says under the Google definition. But what the dictionary doesn't tell you, or the definition doesn't tell you, that marketing automation isn't just about efficiency, it's about helping buyers buy. It's about engaging with leads and customers where they are in their own journey and having conversations with them in their language. And we'll go on and explain a bit more about that now. So, first thing to understand is that most of us have in our head the perfect sales funnel. We start off with a nice tidy funnel where people are aware, they consider, they then purchase, and it's a nice simple system. And I have a big issue with funnels because people don't buy that way. People buy by jumping in and out of the buying process. So sometimes they might look at a review on your company. Sometimes they might talk to somebody who's talked about you. They might have visited your website. They might have seen an ad. They might download a document and review it. But no two people buy in the same way. And this makes life a lot harder for the marketer to be able to understand what is happening in terms of the buying process, because no two people do it. So this is why it's tough to map a perfect journey. But buyers do leave digital clues because every one of these engagements or interactions leave a footprint. So each buyer's journey is unique. Okay. Each buyer, whoever they are, have a unique buyer checklist. And by this, I mean that all of us buy in different ways. Some of us are impetuous. We'll just make a quick, immediate decision. Some of us like to be considered and take a long time over it. Others are very technical. They want to know the ins and outs of the specification of a product or a service. Others just want to feel connected with that company and that person, and they just buy completely emotionally, which is what a lot of us are. But the other thing to understand is that buyers are in control. They decide the pace and how the speed at which they buy. However, buyers do leave clues. Okay, so we do know what they're doing. And some of those clues come in the way of their use of things like search terms. We know that people start with broader search terms at the beginning of a buying cycle, and they tend to get more narrower and more long-term search terms as they become more specific about what it is that they want to buy. People along the journey might do comparisons, they might do downloads, they might look at reviews on you, they may be doing some due diligence on your brand. So there are a lot of clues that are being left by the buyer in the process. And typically, a buyer, particularly in a B2B environment, may have 22 to 25 touch points with a business before a purchase, and quite often 20 of those or 19 of them could be self-served. In other words, a lot of people do a lot of work online first before they directly engage with a business. So that gives you some idea of the challenges that we're talking about. So what we have now is something called marketing automation, and this is a growing market. It's been growing for years and years and years. And of the top performing companies, 80% use marketing automation. Now, that's not to say that if you use marketing automation, you are automatically going to become more successful. What it basically says is the top performing companies have worked out that this is a valuable tool, correctly implemented, makes a big difference in their company. However, the tool has to be set up and used in the right way. So a lot of people say, I've tried marketing automation, it doesn't work. It's because it's about how you set it up and how you set it up in the context of the buyer's journey. So over the last 20 years, 25 years, since the evolution of the internet, what we've seen is a change in the way that people buy. Pre-internet, marketing was really there just to do awareness and interest, and then the sales did the work. They'd knock on the door and show you the Hoover or whatever it was. But nowadays, marketing is the key part of the buying process. It has by far the overwhelming part of it, and quite often, certainly in a B2B environment, the point at which the sales become involved is more at the evaluation purchase point. But as we pointed out, that marketing element could go across 19 touch points with different people buying in different ways. So how does marketing automation help us solve this conundrum? Well, let's start off with how most companies do it. So most companies create what's called a MarTech stack. So most companies start off, quite often, they may or may not have a CRM, which might be at the heart of their sales and marketing efforts. So they go out and get Salesforce or Zoho or one of the other well-known CRMs. They then also realize that they could also do with some email marketing. So they go out and find a MailChimp. And they then perhaps need a landing page management and look at something that allows you to drive funnels. They then realize they might need a form manager. They then realize that they need to manage all their social media. So they might go out and get a social media management tool. Others get caught up by the shiny toys like lead forensics, where you can have reverse IP. You can see who's visited your website. You obviously have a plethora of analytics products. And then obviously you have your website. So all these elements, there is data that's being captured from different parts of a customer's journey. But the interesting thing is you're dealing with half a dozen different systems here. And each system uses slightly different language in terms of how they capture their analytics and data. And the truth is that these systems kind of work together because you can get connectors. But what you're not getting is a true picture of the customer journey. And to give you some idea, out in the world today, this is just half a dozen such shiny toys here. But out in the market today, this is in 2024 on the MarTech website, there are 14,000 different marketing products that will allow you to have an insight into a different part of a customer's journey. There is no way a company could use all of these. As I say, we tend to selectively pick a few and create what's called a MarTech stack. What you end up doing is coupling something together, which kind of works. It gives you the data, but what it really doesn't do is show you the full end-to-end customer journey so that you can fully understand where people are in the buyer journey and how you move them from that part of the buyer journey to the next. So marketing automation as a platform came in by a company called HubSpot, initially pulled it together back in the early 2000s, and quite a lot of other companies have been involved since. There's some well-known ones out there. Salesforce, multi-billion-dollar business. To be fair, it's having a bit of a hard time at the moment because it tends to pitch its solutions at 20, 30, 50, 80,000 pounds a year. You've got companies like Oracle and Marketo Engage, which was bought by Adobe. These guys tend to go for the enterprise market. So they're going for the very, very large companies, but they came up with the whole concept and the approach of being able to literally track a user or a customer right the way through their sales cycle from beginning to end. Over the years, others have come into the market, and you may have come across people like Pipedrive, ActiveCampaign, Infusionsoft, and so on. And there's two on here that we tend to use, which are high level and constant contact, which are more designed for mid-sized and small-sized companies. They are highly featured, but very, very cost effective. So the days have gone where you had to spend tens of thousands of pounds on a system. You can now buy a marketing automation system for a few £100s a month. So what is a marketing automation platform? Well, to start off with, it's a single platform. So it's designed to grow and enhance your business by driving sales, leads and sales, and managing your data. So the first thing to understand is it's a single contract. You only have one piece of software. So you only have to learn one piece of software. You don't have the issue which every day that one of your little systems in your MarTech stack changes the way their API works and everything falls over. You have a single system. So it's completely connected. It's completely seamless. The other thing is it uses a unified database. The sales guys, the marketing guys, everybody uses a common system. You only have one version of the truth. And you have unified analytics. So whatever part of the process you're looking at, it's all in one place. And what a marketing automation system should do, as you can see here, it allows you to start from a tract, which is bringing in your customers, capturing their information, engaging with them, converting them, and then expanding them. And to do that customer lifecycle process, it is using a series of software elements within it, which effectively replace some of those previous products we looked at before. So every piece works together to deliver better results with every integration. So you end up with a humming machine rather than something that's just put together. What are the benefits? Well, if you have such a system, then straight away you have business alignments because sales and marketing are working off the same system. You've got consistency of message. Everybody talks with the same voice because it's all coming out of the same system. You have things like clarity on your target market. We'll talk about things like right message at the right time, so you get a better customer experience. You have increases in productivity. And then, as I mentioned, sales will tend to get more leads, higher quality, better conversion. And I'll explain a little bit more about how these benefits are manifested or come to reality as you go through the setup process. So that's set the scene. That's what a marketing automation platform is. And what I'm going to do now is going to understand how you would set up a platform for you to have a high degree or level of success. And I'll also explain towards the end of it which kind of companies this will work best for. So there's really 5 steps: capture, profile, engage, convert, and review. So in this next section, I'm going to go through those 5 areas to help you understand. So firstly, marketing automation, as we basically said, loads of systems out there. But what you're doing is starting from a point of awareness. So somebody has a need, they're going to become aware, they're going to find your business, and then they're going to go through a review, consideration, evaluation, and purchase through a classic funnel. So where do we start? So most companies tend to, if you ask them, will tell you they've got a business strategy, they've worked out the business goals, they know their target market, they have a very clear proposition. In fact, I was talking with a company this week in exactly the situation. They've got resources and budgets. They have an understanding of who their customers are, and they've spent a lot of energy delivering content plans. So they've got lots of marketing assets, videos, articles, social media, etc., etc. But quite often what a lot of companies don't do is this section that's in the red box, which is really sit down and understand how the customer goes through the buying process. What are the steps they need to take that take them from needing a product to actually having all the information they need to make a considered decision and actually place an order. So one of the first things certainly we do, or you should do, is you need to do some work up front. Don't bother investing in a system unless you've done what's in this box first. So the first thing you need to do is to understand who your personas, avatars are, who those kind of customer groupings are. It used to be that once upon a time doing this was quite an arduous process. Nowadays, it's relatively easy. And certainly with the advent of AI, these things are much quicker to do than they used to. So who are your personas? Who are the people are? And we'll talk a bit more about the personas in a minute. The other thing you need to do is understand what custom fields you need to set up within your system so that you can profile a customer. And when we say profiling them, what we need to know is where are they in the buying process? What information have they already consumed or received? What information do they still need? And what are the stages you need to go to get them from this stage to the next stage? So those fields need to help you mark or tag where a client is or a customer is along that buying process. That obviously means to do that, you have to define the buyer journey. You have to know exactly how people get there, what information they need to make an informed decision. And the other thing you need to understand is the triggers and behaviors. So what it is that actually, what do they need to move further along the buyer journey? And these insights will shape every automation decision, what content to send, when to send it, and how to trigger the next step. So having done that work up front, we can then move on. Here's an example here of where, what would relatively simple be a retirement home vendor, somebody who's trying to sell retirement home space. What's very quickly, when I worked with this particular client, was actually there are two clear personas. One of them is the retiree and one is the family member. The retiree is the person who wants to live in that accommodation, wants to live life to the full, be independent, have freedom, have the best time of their life, have great social experiences, and be fully entertained and be able to do what they want when they want. The family member is who is maybe started the initial inquiry, could be somebody who's looking for a safe, secure home for their elderly parents, more worried about things like on-site support and care, and making sure that they would be guilt-free in knowing that they'd moved to this location. So the messaging has to be slightly different depending on who you're talking to when you're communicating with a potential buyer, whether it's a family member or the retiree. That's one example. Another example is something like a 5G network provider here, a wireless network provider, where actually they have different sectors: ports, construction, airports, ship and retail. But the message is completely different depending on which of those sectors they're dealing with. Ports are worried about security, surveillance and logistics. Construction are only interested in how they can improve their communication in remote environments like deserts. Airports want to know that they've got a completely integrated cross-airport communication. Ships are interested in their passengers being able to talk whilst they're enjoying their journey across the sea, to be able to use the Wi-Fi and connect with home. And in a retail environment, it could be that they're only interested in it as a backup system when their core network fails. So the messaging needs to change. So it's quite important that when you are defining the profiles, you differentiate between the different kind of personas and where they are in their buying cycle. So if we go into, we talked about the buyer cycle. So each of these points on here is where somebody is interacting or engaging with your business. So ideally, what we want to do is to capture every single one of these engagements in a single platform. So different capture techniques, step one that you need to look at. So you need to define what are all the different ways that people can interact with your business, set up a process to capture them. So it could be that you need to put together things like a contact form. So you could, for instance, on your website have a form, how can we help you, etc., etc. And the data that's captured on this form must then go directly into your system. You may have something like downloads, so you can download some valuable information. Well, again, capture. So how do you get their email address? So you use a gated download in order to get that information from them. You may have things like a web chat or a chat bot on your website. So again, you go through the chat bot, it asks questions, hi, how, welcome. But what you try to do is to do lead collection. So if you'd like a bit more information, if you'd like me to send you that information, why don't you give me your first name, last name, and email address? So every case where you have an engagement or interaction between you and your business, you need to find a way to pull that information in and use it. So whether it's your web chat, your live chat, event registrations, webinars, newsletters, special offers, surveys and polls. There are numerous methods that you can capture an engagement. And the key is you need to capture as many as you can, certainly in each of the key stages of the buying cycle. Having captured that information, you also need to tag it. So what was the source? Where did it come from? And make sure that information is captured in your system, because ultimately you want to judge your return on investment. So whatever the initial method was that they contacted you, you need to make sure that information is captured. So the next stage then is to make sure that having captured that information, you're using it to gain use insights from it to do some profiling. So irrespective of which way they come in, you need to make sure you're capturing the source, and then you're starting to capture information around LinkedIn, phone, whatever it is that you need to do to be able to do it. So let me just come through on this one. So here we can see that in this coloured bar here, which would be in one of our systems, you can see exactly where all of your leads came in from in each day by a colour bar, telling you exactly what was the source or the direction or the mechanism by which we captured that inquiry. So when we're doing the profiling, I'm just going to go back into it once more actually. When we go into the profiling, what's important, as I say, is that profiling should also capture within the system where they are in the buying cycle. So if they come in at the lower end of the stage and they're only looking, what are the stages you need somebody to go through from initial interest right the way through to conversion? And what you should be doing is using custom fields to profile and map exactly where they are. So for instance, in our system, we will know whether you've viewed the initial video, we'll know whether you've joined this webinar, we'll know when you've carried out our passive interactive demo, which allows you to pick a card or choose a personal interest. We'll know when you've downloaded a document. We'll know when you've booked a demo and when you viewed a proposition. So we have this mapped or marked within the profiles, so we know exactly where you are in the buying cycle. So having got somebody onto the system and understanding where they are in the buying cycle, we then need to think about how we engage. And we're in an era now where we have what's called hyper-personalized conversations. So you can still have mass conversations with people, but what you try to do is personalize it. And again, those key profile fields, so whether you're the retiree or the retiree's family, means that that information can then be used so that when you do a conversation with them, it is personalized to them. So you make sure your messaging is meaningful, engaging, and fulfilling. And of course, what you also need to do is to make sure that it's two-way. So as part of the profiling, you brought in perhaps an autoresponder, you've assigned the lead, you've assigned the persona and avatar, you put them on a segmented list, basically you profiled them. But then what you need to do is to start using the automations to start your first engaging conversation. So to start with, in terms of engagement qualification, which is step 3, what a lot of companies do is somebody fills out a web inquiry form that says, I'm interested in buying your product. You immediately assume that's a hot lead, automate a notification, phone call, smart mail follow-up, enters into your SaaS pipeline, marked as a contact with an opportunity, and you immediately close the deal. These are hot leads. They've come straight into you and you deal with them quickly. The reality is that a lot of the leads that come in may not be ready at that first contact for you to sell to them immediately. They will then appear within a bucket of just leads, or maybe unqualified leads, or in a customer and a contact. But you end up with a large number in the lead bucket. And the lead bucket is the issue. A lot of companies just allow them to go cold. They never follow them up. They never touch them. They never engage with them, and they lose them. So when we talk about using marketing automation to get you a 30% growth in 6 months, It's not how you can do better with the hot leads, because they will keep coming in. It's how do you take those colder leads, the ones where just showing interest initially, how do you nurture them and therefore move them to the point where they become hot and can be converted? So, the first thing to understand here is that marketing leads and sales leads are different. So, what's the difference? A marketing lead is a lead that's just come in from a marketing campaign, and it's normally within your system. And it may be somebody, as far as you're concerned, because they're from your target audience, they are a qualified lead. However, if the sales don't qualify that marketing lead, what happens? And this is the issue where a lot of people just drop through, fall off the scale, and disappear off. So, what marketing automation is very good at doing is to help you to do some of the following. One, undetermined leads. You don't know who they are, where they are. All they've done is they've given you a first name, last name, and an email address, and they've just done some activity which has allowed you to touch them. It could be a LinkedIn connection request. They've connected you on LinkedIn. We don't know anything at this stage. So what you need to do is to use automations to run some techniques to get more information. And the answer is two-way conversations. Two-way conversations is you start by asking them. So certainly the automation platforms that we advocate have things like smart mails, which are pre-canned emails, which are designed purely personalized to that person to say, hi, thanks very much for your inquiry or looking interest. Out of interest, can you give us a bit more information? We would like to know A, B, C, or D. Make it easy. Tick a box, click a button, whatever you need to do to help you fill in the gaps so you know who those people are. On your website, you can use things like progressive fields. So the form has you're interested in downloading a document, but an extra form that says is are you buying for you or are you buying for somebody in your family? Which would immediately help you know whether they are the retiree or possibly the family member. And then the other technique, of course, is to start using nurture campaigns. So nurture campaigns allow you both leads and indeterminate leads to start the process. So I hope you're doing well. It's been a while. I'd love to reconnect. And then you can start talking with people in a way that feels personal, talking to them. And again, you can use your profiling to help you make sure you get that message right and start a two-way conversation. Here's an example of the progressive profiling fields. Kind of things that you can do in your nurture campaigns is starting to start emails that start talking to them. I'd like to schedule a 30-minute one-to-one meeting with you or some kind of information you'd like to go through it. Something else we use is dynamic content. So this is the idea that although the email starts simple, there are 4 different options. Only one of those 4 would be presented to the end user. Again, based on their profiling and the fields they clicked, they will end up with a slightly different view of the same email because the content has been changed dynamically to fit their profile. An example where we would use that is where you're sending a standard email. If you know which sector, whether they're a shipping company or a construction company, again, the message automatically changes. So those nurture campaigns, you can obviously pre-create them, a series of nurture campaigns. We normally recommend that they're done using an email, but they can be through WhatsApp. They can be different methods that you can do it, different nurture campaigns. But what you're doing is using it to help you deliver the right message at the right time, which is absolutely critical. Helps you with your segmentation and your audience targeting. And it also lets people buy at their own pace. So what we tend to do is do, say, 3 or 4 nurture campaigns in a row. But what we do is we put a marker in between each one, a tag, so that a human gets involved just to have a look. So what we tend to do is use triggers and automations to build a two-way, highly personalized communication. And then this human touch means that every now and again we check it. So if you sent 3 emails and they haven't opened any of them in your nurture campaign, then a human can come in and then do a direct call to them or a reach out or a WhatsApp message, see whether they're still interested or whether it's just the case they've been really busy and not seen the emails. It could be they might ask you to resend them. The key here is that the campaigns need to be relevant. They need to obviously understand who you are, who your profile is, what their needs, what they're looking to buy and how they want to go about buying it, and make sure you're giving them information that guides them through the sales process. So as part of this profiling process, you would have caught things like their contact details, their source, understand which capture technique, role, industry, situation, persona. You will start seeing things like which pages they visited, which contents they consumed, and quite a nice one is lead score, which is again a quick way of understanding somebody's temperature. Is the more they engage with you, the more their score goes up, and then as time passes their score decays away, and if they get re-engaged it goes up. And these changes in lead score or sudden increase in lead score can be a good marker to tell you somebody's highly engaged. And you're using all of these profiling techniques to determine what is their product or service or information, where do they sit in terms of your personas, where are they in the buying cycle, and what is their readiness to buy, and then making sure that you carry out actions to keep moving people through that buying process. So the beauty of marketing automation, because it's all in one system, what you can do, you create a single life timeline. So you can see here we have a lead which has 47 events that we've captured in their life cycle. And you can see everything from when they visited websites. So here there's a web visit that's being highlighted on the 24th of February 25, and you can see which pages they visited. If you carry on along there, you can see which videos they've viewed or which media they've downloaded. You can see here there's a chatbot integration. They've completed a form. So all of the engagement activities are caught on a single timeline. And this is key because each engagement allows you to update or improve your profiling or understanding of that person. So here we can see, I think on that one, I think we had a lead score. What was the lead score on the 101? So the lead score on here was 101, and you can see why it's 101. They provided an email, completed forms, they've done media views, they visited pages. So you have a scoring technique. And you can see here they completed a card trick. So they'd carried out one of our little test demos that we carry out. So as part of the engagement and nurture process, what do you tell people to do? So again, there should be the goal at the end in mind is to convert them. So don't just push them a load of information, which is probably to them not relevant. What you need to do is be providing them information which is of value to them, which helps them along the buying process. So like today, you've joined a webinar, you've been invited today. It could be that I provided you via the newsletter with industry insights and news. There'll be one going out this week. We could be running online events. We could be doing training courses. You might want to invite them to a VIP club. You might want to do a knowledge share event. You might want to use things like polls and surveys so that you can get that two-way interaction going. Ask for feedback, get them onto newsletters. The key here is the nurturing process shouldn't be random. You should be doing it with an end in mind, which means you need to understand the customer journey and what you need to do to move people from where they are today to where you want them to be so that they convert. And this just gives you some idea. Here's a content marketing strategy, shall we say, for content. And it shows you that in the early stages, they're probably looking at videos and infographics. As they move through the funnel, the consideration research, they want to look at things like how-to guides and white papers, or perhaps look at your social media. As they get down to the analysis and comparison stage, they might want comparison tables or demo done or webinar information. As they get to purchase, then they want things like case studies and perhaps go into forum discussions or look more closely at your reviews or examples of your work. So as you're going through the buying cycle, you're providing them slightly different information, and no two companies will have the same set. You just need to work out what you need to do at which step for your personas. So here, for example, here's a large enterprise company considering a move from in-house to outsource IT services. Then it tells you the different stages. In this case, we've used an AIDA model. The slightly different content that you would deliver to them depending on where they are in the buying cycle. Now, if you do this right, the impact on the person who is receiving the content is almost mind-blowing. If they are themselves going through the buying cycle and you keep providing them information which is exactly relevant to them at the point they are in the buying cycle, it's almost like you're completely in tune with them. It's like having a real conversation. You're providing them with the information that's relevant to them at exactly the right time. And from then, they immediately get a connection. They think, right, this company knows what they're doing. They're providing me with the right information. They're helping me to make a decision. They are 9 times more likely, if you do this right, to buy with you than go against another competitor, even if the competitor may be cheaper or offering some other value proposition, because they're connecting with you and your brand. So the last stage is conversion, which is closing the deal. So we obviously can move things with a single system that's got sales CRM built into it. You move them through into a pipeline. Once they're qualified, the pipeline stages maybe need analysis, discovery, demo, whatever's needed, but you're taking them through. And what you can do is use a series of pre-canned emails. So once you've got somebody at the beginning of that pipeline, i.e. you're in the sales camp, in the opportunity area, then again, you can use emails just to help people move through the different stages. Okay, we understand your needs. Let's do a discovery call. How do we get from a discovery call to a demo? So use automations to help you move people through the pipeline stages. Along the way, when things start to slow down, you set up one-to-one meetings to try and move them through the pipeline. Synchronize your emails into your CRM. So all of the engagements with that particular person are being captured in your CRM. So you have a complete picture of every engagement with that person as they're going through the sales cycle. Capture outbound calls if you want. Again, use these smart emails, because the beauty of a smart email is it tells you when they're opened, and if there's a document in there, they've downloaded it, like a proposal. So when we send out a proposal, we know you've read it, not just received it in an email and then perhaps discarded it. So use smart emails so you actually know when somebody's opened it and when they've downloaded documents. Obviously, word of advice, don't immediately pick up the phone within 2 minutes of their opening or downloading a document. Perhaps just wait a few hours so it's not obvious that you are completely watching every move. Run nurture campaigns in parallel. The marketing doesn't stop just because you got them into an opportunity pipeline. So send them nurture campaigns. Why work with your company? What customers say about you? Provide them some more case studies showcasing your success. Help them understand your values and why they should buy from you and your brand. And what I've suggested here is there are a load of automation tools that can do this. Tasks are set up to remind you to follow up, automation alerts to let you when things are going cold. So if somebody's starting to lose momentum, there should be a system that says, hey, you need to touch base with this person again to try and make sure that they remain warm. In other words, they're not opening the emails, they're going cold. You need to get the momentum back up again. Use automations to do that. So again, once you have got to post-sale, you may want to also use automations to help you ask for referrals, ask for testimonials or feedback. You might want to run upsells or cross-sell campaigns, use newsletters to keep them updated, and run surveys and polls on a regular basis. So it doesn't stop. You should always be reviewing what you've done and then trying to keep going with that client. So here's a request for feedback. Tell us about your experience. Could be a web type form or send me a Google review. If you don't ask, you don't get. So putting it all together, there's a lot I've covered here, but basically core principles. So core principles are: don't do marketing automation if you don't have a business strategy. Don't do it if you don't understand your customer. You need to understand your customer. You need to look at your segmentation and audience targeting. You need to understand who your personas are, how different people buy within your target audience. You need to draw up your workflows. How are you going to capture the information every time they engage with you? How are you going to build a profile so you know where they are in the buying process and what you need to do to take them to the next? You need to have a process to engage, not just sending them irrelevant information, but stuff that nurtures them and moves them through. Set up those nurture campaigns so you take them to the next stage in the buying cycle, and then ultimately convert. Most important, deliver the right message at the right time. And I can't remember, it's a very simple sentence there, but the right message means it has to be relevant content to them and the right time so they're receiving the information in their own time, i.e. it should be behavioral driven rather than you just shoving it down their throat. You get that, deliver the right message at the right time correct, and you build an immediate rapport with any of your clients straight away. They will buy from you. Let people buy at their own pace. Use those behavioral triggers, build two-way communications, ask information, get them to click things, to come back to you, make it engaging, and then keep end-to-end visibility of the customer journey. Know how they started and how they ended and where they are in the buying process. Now, the key, this end-to-end visibility is critical because without it, you can't measure ROI. So ROI means that what you need to do is you have to know which campaign a lead came in on. If you haven't caught it, then you can't report against it. You need to know how many leads came from each campaign, how much revenue they generated. It's again, because it's a common sales and marketing engine, you have the information on the sales within the same system that's capturing the leads. So there's no issue. You have all the information around you. Your pipeline information is there. You can see how many leads you've got from which campaign, how much revenue they've generated, and you can work out your cost, your revenue per lead based on the different campaign types. But I've not added in here is you can obviously then put in the costs. If you know the costs as well for running these campaigns, which include people, resources, content creation, even website management, hosting, SEO, add them all together. And what you'll start to do is get a real cost per lead and cost per sale, which is more and more important. So a single system will allow you to actually see and know which campaigns are delivering you the best return. My last section, which I think I've got just about 5 minutes on, impact of AI. AI is here already today. So one of the beauties of AI is that where we were creating personas before used to be a really difficult job. Nowadays, you can create a series of personas quite quickly using AI as a tool to assist you, not replace you. So if it's properly guided, we can use it. The other thing it can do, of course, is if you've created content for one persona, so for instance, might be a marketer in a business, or it might be the CEO, or it might be for the ops director, or whatever it will be. If you've written the content for one, it's very easy to use AI, if it understands your personas, to rewrite the content for you for different personas. So again, if you create the content and the campaigns for one persona, it's very, very easy to use AI now to generate the content for the other personas. So again, what we're talking about here, it's about hyper personalization, making the content completely relevant to that person so they receive the information in their language. So a well set up marketing automation platform can deliver 30% growth in, say, 6 months, but you need time, skills, resources, and budget. So who does it best work for? It best works for SMEs with smaller limited marketing teams. So businesses who have one or two people juggling SEO, pay-per-click, social email, and CRM, i.e. the all-in-one platform reduces the tool overload. It could be for B2B companies, particularly with complex sales cycles, firms where deals involve multiple stakeholders, 10 to 20 touch points. Marketing automation helps track those leads across the full buyer journey, nurturing them intelligently and proving the ROI. For professional services firms, accountants, consultants, legal practices agencies, IT service providers, it allows you to systematically lead capture, automated follow-up, and referral tracking. All is simplified in a single platform. And then obviously fast growth scale-ups, tech firms, SaaS providers and startups who want to move quickly, and this is a good system for allowing you to do it. It can be used for e-commerce, product businesses, repeat buyers, businesses without systematic sales and marketing processes. It's a great way of getting them to do just that. So if you're looking to accelerate your growth, you've reached a plateau or ceiling in your growth, you need to break through, or you don't have a systemized sales and marketing process, then this system is right for you. Future of marketing automation. AI is coming around the corner. At the moment, we're in a generative phase. Soon, we're going to be going to predictive phase. I'm not going to cover all of these, but let's just move on quickly. The key to AI is data. So data relies on large data sets. It's looking for patterns, and it's about training. So data sets need to be ideally in one location. Okay, it is possible to cut across, but marketing automation is brilliant because, as we pointed out here, I showed you a lead with 47 engagements. Here's a lead with 227 events captured in a single system. If I was to train an AI tool, giving it 227 events per user for, say, 1,000 users, then it will start to understand what the predictors are that are likely to lead to a potential sale. So AI is brilliant if you start to use it in large data sets. So a key here is a marketing automation system pulls all your data into one location. So when you're ready, AI can make a difference. If you can help customers buy something before they know they need it. That is the ultimate nirvana of sales and marketing. There's something else coming around the corner, which is privacy. Privacy is saying there's new data protection laws are coming in, they're strengthening GDPR. And one thing that's happening is they're dislabeling third-party cookies, and you're going to get stronger e-privacy rights, which means the control of data is going to come back to the user. So a lot of companies now understand that what you need is consent. And to get consent, you need to have brand and you need to have trust. So there's a fight or a run here because the days are definitely numbered from sending out cold emails or cold connections, etc., etc. Those days are going to go, and a lot of the tools that are used today for marketers will no longer be acceptable in 3 to 4 years' time. You have to build a legitimate consent mechanism which is based around brand and trust. So, just as a quick example here, Deliveroo has never made a penny profit. In fact, this year is the first year it's about to go into profit, possibly for the first time. It has spent billions. What it's done is it has moved the customer away from being directly connected to a restaurant to a point that the customers have now signed up to the Deliveroo app. So now the customers are owned by Deliveroo, not by the restaurant owners. So the reason that Deliveroo is worth billions is because they now have a customer base of consenting, loyal, brand-aligned customers. So again, as we go forward in time, there's companies like Google, Meta, Amazon, YouTube, who are currently spending a lot of money with advertisers building their own brand as well as brand for their customers through single lines. So Amazon are trying to take over the retail market. Facebook and Meta are taking over the area around social space. Google, it goes without saying, you can understand here that these companies are spending a lot of money. Why? Because they want you to consent and be part of their ecosystem. So what they're trying to do is acquire consent, manage the life cycle, and if they can get your life cycle, then they can capture your data, they can engage with you and convert. So what you're going to end up with is a situation where you have large players in the market where what they're doing is because they understand you, they profiled you, they've got your personal data, they're then going to use the information to target you with content and stuff that will help you to stay within their particular ecosystem and to buy from them on an ongoing basis. So you can see a world that's going to be managed by Amazon, Google, and Meta. However, other companies need to do the same. You need to understand and profile your customers. You need to capture their detail. You need to target them and build up your own ecosystems. So to compete in a world in 4 to 5 years' time where you've got these larger entities, and the larger entities are not going to be interested in your niche per se, so you will always have an opportunity to stand out within your niche. But to do that, you must understand your customer. You need to use AI. You need to systemize your automating the sales and marketing. You need to understand how to capture the data of consent and build your own brand loyalty in your own system. If you don't do that, then there is a risk that you'll be gobbled up by either a competitor or another company that does exactly this. So marketing automation solutions are not gone. They're going to keep going and they're going to keep growing and they're going to be needed, and every company needs to think about it. The key issue is how do you do it? As I said to you, some successful companies use marketing automation, but it doesn't mean just because you've got a marketing automation platform, you're going to be successful. All the work is in the setup. There's 3 approaches. You can do it yourself. So you can go out, find a platform, and there's loads out there. You can set up your own in-house team or do it yourself. You can do the videos, the YouTubes, all the information you need to try and build your own marketing automation solution. It's time intensive, and it's going to take a lot of work to do it. The other option is you outsource it. You get a third party to do it for you. You get a marketing agency who will run the whole thing for you. Or you just buy your leads going forward from one of the bigger players in the market. There's a third approach, which is what we advocate, which is you use an agency like All Digital Marketing, and we work on a hybrid partner model. So what we do is we provide you the knowledge and experience that's needed to set these systems up. We help you set up the system, and then as we're setting up the system, we transfer the knowledge. Bearing in mind, as I said to you before, the beauty is it's a single system, so you've only got to learn one. and it won't keep falling over. It's obviously well supported. So once it's set up, it should be able to run itself, which of course is the beauty of marketing automation. Is it's self-managed, all the automations will keep going. But having already built a series of campaigns on there, it's very easy for you then to replicate, copy, and set up future campaigns. And we do that through a monthly review or support call. So we stay in touch with you even after we've set the system up and transferred the knowledge, just to keep you motivated in using the system. Our experience is 9 out of 10 people that we work with, we will gain them a 25 to 30% growth within 6 months. But to give you some idea, a 300k business will see roughly a 5-fold ROI in their first year. A £1 million turnover will see a 10 million ROI in their first year. So I would say probably you need to be a 300k or greater turnover company. Anything above that, then this system starts to work for you. And we have a series of 2 or 3 systems that we work with, which we would point you towards depending on what we think the system needs to do. So next steps, if you're not already signed up, you probably are, to our newsletter. We can send you more details or concepts covered in this webinar. You can try our magic trick demo. You can obviously request a direct demo. Happy to show you 1 or 2 of these systems. You can obviously connect with me if you haven't already via that QR code. And we will probably, what you will receive after this call today, a feedback request. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you thought of today's webinar. And most importantly, if it's not for you, then please spread the word. Tell everybody about today's webinar, and or point them in the direction of our company. Would be appreciated. That brings me to the end of my webinar. I hope that's been really, really useful. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending, and I hope to hear from some of you soon.